Hey everyone, I'm really sorry I missed Thursday's video. The kids started school, they got sick, I got sick. Life just happens. So today I decided that instead of a sketchbook video, I am going to post what should have been posted last Thursday. So I've been getting a lot of questions about this painting that I'm working on and what it is that I'm actually working on. This is just a hardboard. It's just a thin little piece of hardboard that is shaped like California. And for today's video, I'm going to go into these rocks or cliffs and we're going to define them just a little bit more. So if that sounds like something you'd like to look at, grab your paintbrush and let's go paint.
So I like to start from the distance and work my way to the foreground. So right now all I'm doing is using my liner brush and going into a dark color. It is not straight black, it's a little bit of burnt umber and a little bit of blue and a little bit of titanium white. And the reason, even though these are the shadows, because they're in the distance, we don't want them dark black. We want to be able to create some distance. So although I'm going in and trying to define, I'm not putting too much detail because again we want it to look like it's in the distance. And again moving forward, one step forward. So as you notice the dark shadows, the shadows are starting to get darker. And that is the way we bring everything closer to the viewer. And when it comes to painting cliffs, there are angles all over the place. Don't always do an up and down, don't always do a sideways. Switch them up a lot. I've also switched my liner brushes because I'm working closer to the viewer. I want a little bit thinner lines and a little bit more detail. So the liner brush that I'm using is a Liquid Precision liner. It's a 0, and any liner really do. I like liners that have long hair on the tip because it tends to hold more paint. And you also can have a thinner line with the long hair liners. Again, moving even closer to the viewer, the darks or shadows are going to get even darker. I use a little bit more blue, a little bit more color as well. So in this little mix, there is a little bit more red in it as well. So it's red, blue, and burnt umber with a little bit of black. And I don't know what happened to the lighting here. One of my lights must have went out in my studio, so I apologize how it got a lot darker here. Still using that liner. And I'm just defining. My underpainting is showing through, and when you layer on top of that, things just sort of start to pop out and the shapes of the rocks start to form. So all I'm really doing is just enhancing those little features a little bit more. And I'm going around all these little bushes that are climbing up the side of this rock. And right now I'm not focusing too much on where the highlights are going to be and where the shadows are going to be. Right now I'm just trying to define pretty much each individual rock and get all of the details in, because we can always glaze over and adjust the values of where the shadows and highlights are going to be. Now we are the closest to the viewer in the very foreground. So every single one of these rocks, the edges are going to start to get a little sharper. The details in the cracks are going to get a lot more apparent, and all of the bushes you're going to start to see them defined even more. There's also going to be the darkest darks in this little section, and when we come back in with our highlights, this is where the brightest brights are going to be as well. And all that does is bring it closer to the viewer. When you have more color, the darker the color, the brighter the color, even the greens are going to be more green and less saturated. And all that brings the viewer's attention to that little area, and it shows that that's the closest to you, which pushes everything else back. I'm going to be doing all these little circles right here with our pebbles down in the beach that I've washed up. So there's just going to be a bunch of, they're not obviously perfect circles, but they're just a little defined, just to show that your eye that there's something down there. And when we start to put color on top of them, they're going to start to see it as little tiny pebbles. Now, because the sun is shining through, I'm going to very lightly add a glow to this back part of the mountain to show that the sun is behind it and it's going to glow through it. And that's what I'm doing here, is just putting a little highlighting glow throughout it and adding a little bit more depth and color to these rocks. I'm adding some gray in places, because if you look at rocks, they're not all just one color. So you want to take your time and glaze a bunch of different colors to get all the different textures and colors that come into rocks. And here's that color that I was telling you about, when I'm going to add a little bit of color here. And you don't want to do every single little pebble with this color. You want to vary it up. And again, even with the grays, you notice I'm not doing every single rock the same color. And it just takes a lot of little layers to get that depth that we're looking for. If you want a lot of depth and character in your paintings, it's layers, layers, layers. Now I'm going in with a little bit of alizarin crimson mixed in with my burnt umber, which is creating a reddish sort of color. And I'm just defining a little bit more of the rock. And to keep with color harmony, we're going to go up here to the top. And you can see on the right how much paint I actually mix at a time. With oil paints, you do not need a lot of paint. A little bit really does go a very long way. Now, just like with the rocks, I'm taking this same reddish brown and adding it to the pebbles just a little bit here and there, not very much, and you don't want to do every single pebble. Now I'm adding a little bit of yellow to my white, and I'm going in and just creating a little highlight throughout the rock of where the sun is going to be. And I'm still using a liner. I just switched to a Liquitex number 0 liner, but it's just still a liner. And I have a ton of liners that I switch between all the time. It's probably one of my favorite brushes. I just always think that the detail that you get with the liner is what makes a painting come together. To finish this part up, on the foreground I'm just going to glaze over some white on these rocks, just to show where some highlights are going to be. And in the next part we'll go over and define this area a lot more.
So I hope you liked the video. Hit that like button if you did. Hit the subscribe button and make sure to hit that bell so you don't miss anything. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. See you guys in the next video. Bye.